Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video, and in today's video I'm going to be giving my reaction to Moses Itauma winning via TKO in round 5 versus Jermaine Franklin Jr. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and feel free to join the Patreon as well. You can request any kind of combat sporting related content, whether that being predictions or reactions to fights. And again, I appreciate all support in which I've had with it so far, and of course the link will be in the description. Also, sorry if you can hear the rain pattering down, it's not the best weather here. But yeah, let's get straight into this one. And it was brutal. I mean, I feel like everybody was kind of expecting it to be brutal, and I was one of the ones. I think I said that it was going to be a KO in round 2 to Itauma, so I suppose credit to Franklin for even making it that far in the fight, making it halfway through a fight with Moses Itauma. I felt like, that showed a little bit of grit in itself, and nobody's even mentioning that because of how brutal the eventual knockout was for Itauma. And it was that. I mean, Itauma looked to be having success throughout the entirety of the fight, really. He had him hurt on multiple occasions. He dropped him in the third round and had him hurt, I believe, in the first as well. It was just a real complete showing again. The speed, the feints, the way that he picks his punches, but can still keep a good level of power behind them is just so impressive. When he got that first knockdown on Franklin, you could see that he would pull a shot if he didn't think that it was worthwhile, and just the thought process between each punch looks so good, and you can see that when he's throwing them, and to be able to find the gaps and even create the openings is just very impressive. And that was just something in which, again, was just another evolvement of his game, in which I saw even better in that last fight against Franklin here. And again, when he knocked him out, he was saying that he, saw the uppercut and then he was going to follow up with another 2 or 3 more shots, and he's listing the punches in which he was going to follow him up with. And it's just like I say, you can see that he can see everything coming, and that he can, predict these things, and he knows, and he's fluid, and he, knows what's going to work and what's going to land, because he is, really watching each thing that he throws. And again, it's just very impressive, and he is basically a talent that is unlike anybody in the heavyweight division at the moment, and so he is going to be a real threat to everybody, and I feel like everybody knows that, and that's why it's scary. I think, that was a real good showing performance again. I am pretty buzzing with my prediction. Yes, I said that it would end it earlier, but I'm pretty sure I said Franklin comes forwards, kind of leaning over his front foot and ducking his head down a bit. The uppercut is there to land on him, and of course Itauma was able to go out there, catch him coming forwards. I think I said that Franklin would get caught if he threw, but he's already been beaten up enough where he was just kind of staggering forwards and just went straight onto an uppercut there. But, I was pretty happy with getting that one right and seeing that that was the clear kind of route to land the big KO punch. And I mean, for Itauma now, he's got, all the options really, bar, Usyk and, well, an actual world title option, I suppose. The WBO have come out and said that, or tried to say that he is the #1 contender, or at least that's what I think that they've done. And does that mean he's going to get a shot at the winner of Dubois Wardley? I don't think so, but it could happen. Wardley seemed to kind of push back on the idea of him fighting, Itauma after, if he beats Dubois. Dubois might be up for it, to be fair, and he probably would fight anybody if he does beat Wardley, but Wardley seemed to push back on it a little bit. I think that's because of the fact that, Wardley hasn't had a chance to fight Usyk himself. He's a current world champion, and I'm pretty sure, if Usyk beats Verhoeven, he's going to want to go down to then try and become undisputed again and try and fight Wardley or Dubois, the winner of that. Obviously, Dubois has lost twice to Usyk already, and to be fair, I don't feel like the fans would be all too excited to see Usyk versus Dubois again. So if Dubois beats Wardley, then Dubois versus Itauma could make sense as a fight. So again, obviously there's a lot to, see what happens in the future, I suppose. But for Itauma, again, if he doesn't get them type of fights like a Wardley, I mean, I don't want to see him up against a Usyk just yet. Like I said in my prediction, wouldn't mind seeing him have, 3 more fights before he goes up against somebody, like a Usyk, or even like a Dubois or Wardley, or at least, 2 more. Obviously, he made easy work of Franklin here, but there's lots of other good top contenders. I mean, him versus Azali Zhang could be a good fight. Him versus Joseph Parker could be a good fight. Again, Joseph Parker is somebody a bit different as a fighter. He's not quite just a stand forward, in your face type heavyweight. Well, he is going to be in your face, but he's not going to just plod around, and be an easy target for a Itauma. I think he is going to offer something a bit different. Again, that could be a good fight. I feel like I want to see different styles against Itauma at this point because, since his kind of step up, we've seen him against Dillian White and now Jermaine Franklin. And yes, they are 2 credible operators, but they are 2 kind of just plodding heavyweights, which aren't the most dynamic of fighters. Whereas, not Zhang Zhang isn't, he's similar, but, that would just be a bit of a firefight. But, somebody like that of a Joseph Parker could be an interesting fight. That of a Richard Riakporhe could be an interesting fight as well. Even Lawrence Okoli could offer something a little bit different. Richard Torres Jr., again, I mentioned him before, that could be a good fight. There is some good fights there and around still for Itauma before he gets, all the way to the top. Again, I wouldn't mind seeing him against WBA champion, regular champion Murat Gassiev to then get a world title through that way. Again, that could be a way to sell a fight. I feel like the fans aren't going to keep getting sold to lesser opponents because we've now seen him beat up Franklin. So it does have to be a clear step up, which you can sell as well for Itauma. But again, we'll have to wait and see which route they go down. He hasn't really shown in the way of getting caught with punches or anything like that yet. So again, a power punching fighter could really, possibly cause some sort of issues to him. I don't know. Again, somebody like Zhang could be live for them early rounds in which Itauma's going to be, live for. Obviously, Zhang's a lot slower and a lot more of a plodding heavyweight, but again, that could be an interesting fight, which I would definitely, want to see as well. But, the world's Itauma's oyster. I feel like he's going to become a world champion at some point. I think from what he has shown, even if he goes on to lose a shock fight and he gets knocked out, I'm pretty sure he would be able to come back and still become a world champion. So, from what I've seen so far, I think he will become a world champion. But when, I don't know, because Usyk has said that he doesn't want to fight him. He's kind of got his career planned out until he retires. So maybe when Usyk retires, we could then see Itauma come through. But there's no harm in that as well. Having these fights for Itauma when he's only, 21 years old, there's no harm in that. And he's going to just grow even more as a fighter, I think. As long as he doesn't start to overestimate opponents or overlook opponents too much, then again he can, really start to climb through to be the only guy as a top contender. Of course we have the likes of Ajit Kabiel as well, who deserves a title shot, in my opinion, over Itauma at the moment. So there are still guys who deserve title shots, in my opinion, a bit more than Itauma. So again, Itauma can have these matchups like these, Zhangs, like these Joseph Parker's, like these possibly FA Jagbers, but that would be probably quite an easy fight for Itauma, I think. But again, these other kind of top names are around, which could be good options. Again, a live opponent like a Richard Torres Jr. could be really entertaining as a fight, even though he's not anywhere near as experienced as that as Franklin. Just again, like a real live, young, hungry fighter. Again, could be something a bit different for Itauma. But to speak about, some of the other fights in this card as well, it was a real good card, to be fair. Sometimes these Magnificent Seven cards, they normally do deliver, but some of them can go on quite late and they can, be a lot of decisions, and it can be, because they're quite matched well normally, they can be quite tentative fights where fighters are a bit reluctant to commit at times because of how close the fights are. But this wasn't really the case. I mean, we had Nathan Heaney losing the co-main event to Jerome Warburton. I didn't really even like seeing the fact that we had Nathan Heaney moved up to the co-main event. It's obviously just because he sold tickets, and he sold a lot of tickets. I mean, his ring walks are iconic, and I was getting behind the ring walk. I've seen him fight a couple of times live. I think I saw him for ringside for both of the Brad Pauls fights he had. But his ring walks are something different, but that's not obviously going to help him in the fight, really. And I think he did look a lot worse in this fight. I think he looked very stale, very tense, very just arm punching, not really committing to the punches, just not looking fluid or natural at all. And again, it just wasn't really a good look. And Warburton was allowed to grow into the fight. When Warburton looked really poor to start off with, he looked like he was there for the taking for the first couple of rounds, but then he was allowed to grow into it. He looked scared, to be honest, at the first couple of rounds, Warburton, probably because of the fact that he got knocked out early against Kieran Conway. But to get knocked out badly by Kieran Conway, and then be able to come back to be able to beat Nathan Heaney. It's a good win for Warburton, but it does show that I just don't think Nathan Heaney's at the level in which he wants to be or his fans want him to be. I don't think he's ever going to get this fight at Stoke that he's been talking about for a while, and I think he honestly could retire at this point, because I don't think he's going to be able to rebuild or reclimb to be able to get to anywhere near a British level type fight again. I feel like Jerome Warburton was an English level type fighter at best, in my opinion. So I just don't think that Nathan Heaney's got it in him anymore to be able to get to that level. It'll be interesting to see if Jerome Warburton signs with Queensberry, but he'll probably get another opportunity even if he doesn't. The fight which should have been the co-main event, in my opinion, was Willie Hutchinson versus Ezra Taylor. A lot of people coming into this fight, I was surprised. A lot of these kind of top pundits and things like that were saying Ezra Taylor was going to win. And I said from the get-go that I didn't think that was going to be the case. I actually thought Hutchinson would stop him. He didn't, but in my opinion, he pretty much dominated him, to be fair. I mean, it was a complete kind of boxing masterclass, really, in my opinion. The scorecards gave it wide. I thought it was a wide win for Willie Hutchinson as well, and he was boxing and moving very well. I was saying, in my prediction beforehand, that Ezra Taylor's quite a tense fighter. He's not fluid at all. He doesn't follow up on his combinations, and, it's very just... He's a well-drilled fighter, but then he doesn't add any kind of flair or anything else to it. It's very just, like, say, just doing exactly what he's getting told. There's no kind of, like, say, additional things to his game, and he doesn't use his power that well at all. He's, a massive frame. He looked much bigger than Hutchinson in there, but he just didn't use that at all. He didn't use any aggression, any spite. He was comfortable boxing at a mid-range. He was very tense. Hutchinson saw pretty much every one of his punches coming. Hutchinson, complete performance from him. A great performance defensively. Such good head movement. Managing range very well. Obviously, if Ezra Taylor had put it on him a bit more, he could have used his power a bit more and actually could have maybe caused problems, because Hutchinson does have his chin and leave it out a bit and, is a little bit too careless at times. But he didn't do that, and Hutchinson was allowed to box at a tempo in which he wanted to box at, and it was very comfortable for him. And again, that showed that Hutchinson is at, again, a higher level, which I did think he was. And I mean, his post-fight interview was very entertaining, as always. Just a lot of shouting, a lot of screaming, and a lot of nonsense, really. But he's saying that he wants to get to a world level again now. I don't think he's going to be able to ever beat the guys, at the real kind of top level. But there's some good, entertaining British matchups there. I would love to see him in a fight with Ben Whittaker, but again, I feel like that probably won't happen because Matchroom seems to have other plans with him. If not, the likes of a Lyndon Arthur, now European champion, that could be a good fight to be made. Again, there's a few other good British names about. A Boatsi, I mean, he should have a rematch with Zach Parker, really. So, that fight probably won't happen. Maybe, if Boatsi doesn't have a rematch with Zach Parker, then Hutchinson versus Zach Parker could be a good fight. Again, there's some good, still, Anthony Yard could be a good fight as well for Willie Hutchinson. So again, I don't feel like he's going to go straight to a world title fight after this, but it can definitely elevate him again to the upper echelons of the kind of British side of things, and definitely gain a bit more respect for him as a fighter, hopefully from the pundits. I mean, obviously, Willie Hutchinson had his whole thing with Simon Jordan in the build-up to their fight, and now I saw in one of the post-fight interviews he did in his change room, he was giving it back to Simon Jordan after the fight, because of course Simon was back in Ezra. That was quite funny. Hopefully he goes on TalkSport again and just slags him off, because that would be quite entertaining. But yeah, he definitely is an entertaining speaker, at least, Hutchinson. He's a very, very talented fighter as well. But also, Brad Paul's managed to get a real destructive knockout against Shaquille Thompson. That was very unexpected. I mean, Shaquille, I thought was going to win. He was pretty much outboxing him the majority of the fight. He looked very comfortable. I was hoping that he would have turned it up to try and get him out there, because, whenever he did land big, it did look like it could have a possibility to be able to hurt Brad Paul's, but he just didn't follow up again on it enough, and then he started getting too comfortable, and Brad Paul showed that he can really, have a bit of snap to his punches when he needs to. I mean, he's never really been known for being a big power puncher, but again, that was a real good shot that he landed, and it was quite brutal the way that he knocked him out. And there's potential there for Brad Pauls to kind of get back to a good level. I mean, obviously he had his fight with Denzel Bentley, which he lost pretty clearly, really. And so, that's going to hold him back a little bit from getting pushed too much. But, there still is some good matchups there for Brad. I think, again, British level type fighters, British name type fighters. I mean, a George Liddard fight could be a really entertaining fight for the British title. Liam Smith, again, is kind of there and thereabouts. There is some decent fighters around which could be given as options as well. Like I say, I think a British route for Brad Pauls could be, a good route. Again, we'll have to wait and see, because I think George Liddard was trying to get Liam Smith as an opponent. I don't think that fight will happen. So again, Brad Pauls could be a good option instead. And then to quickly rattle through the other two fights on this card, Josh Holmes had a very exciting first round knockout against Alex Murphy, where Alex Murphy, again, not a power puncher at all. He has 0 knockouts on his resume. He actually went and rocked Josh Holmes. And then, Josh Holmes, again, not really a big power puncher himself, went out there and just destructively knocked out Alex Murphy. And again, I was thinking this one was going to go to some kind of a decision. I mean, from, like I say, both of their resumes, it did kind of look like it would go to a comfortable decision. But yeah, Josh Holmes, the first person to knock out Alex Murphy, and that's impressive as well, because Alex Murphy had been in there with Akib Fiaz and Khalil Majid, two top kind of prospect names around in the UK at the moment, and for Josh Holmes to be able to go out there and knock him out on what was a step up for him was very impressive. And again, hopefully now he'll get pushed more with Queensbury, and can start building something there as well. And again, oh, I forgot to mention as well, Liam Davis won via a pretty comfortable stoppage against Grandelli. Again, at featherweight, he looked pretty good. And again, a good stoppage for him, and definitely what he needed to be able to get back in, and get comfortably back into contention for things. Obviously, he had a good win against Kurt Walker previously, but now at featherweight, he's looking good, and that was the European title for him as well. I was surprised to see him get put in for a European title fight, but again, that was a good performance from himself, and again, a comfortable stoppage as well. And then, of course, Michael Gomez Jr. made pretty easy work of Jordan Flynn as well, going out there and just kind of bullying him, breaking his jaw, and just being way too much kind of physically for him. And that was when the pressure was on both fighters, and especially Gomez Jr. following his loss to Reece Bellotti before, and still trying to follow in his father's footsteps. But again, that was a good performance for him, and he'll probably get pushed again by Queensbury now. A real good show, like I say, very entertaining. All the fights, real just all-round quality show, and that's often, what I want to see from these Magnificent Seven cards. That's kind of the standard I want to set with them. And again, Itauma, he's a superstar, and where will he go next? Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you didn't, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.